I've been on this story for years. In fact, it was one of my earliest articles for Due Dissidence, was getting into how Pete Buttigieg's non-cancellation by Democrats makes my fucking head explode. That guy, at the height of wokeness, at the height of anti-racism, committed like 6 cancelable offenses before breakfast through the entire 2020 primary campaign season with no consequence. No consequence. This was really the moment of don't speak for black people. And he literally claimed black support from everyone who ever shook his hand who happened to be black. But nope, nope. He doesn't get canceled. He gets elevated to transportation secretary. So this was Politico 2020. On life support, Buttigieg's struggles with black voters threatened his candidacy. So Stephen Smith just went on Bill Maher. We got to do it audio only because Bill Maher's a bitch like that. But it came up why Buttigieg has literally 0% black support.
Democratic primary voters, 16% would support Buttigieg. That's the highest of any candidate. Pete Buttigieg.
I don't believe it. I think that's just a poll number. I can't see that happening.
Well, okay, but wait. 16%. Black voters, 0. 0. You don't usually see 0 anywhere. 0's low.
For who? What is this?
Yeah, 0 is low.
Explain that. I mean, why do black voters have this? I mean, he's a nice guy.
Yeah, he's under-indexing a little bit with black voters, yeah.
A little. What is that all about?
He doesn't move us. I respect the man. I've interviewed him before. Very nice man, highly intelligent. But you gotta be able to move us, bro. He doesn't move us. Well, you can speculate as to why that is. I'm not going there. He doesn't move us.
All right. So apparently being honest about Pete Buttigieg is a third rail. Stephen Smith likes to go up there and act like he's a truth teller and rant and rave against the Democratic Party. But, most of these people are just sheepdogs putting on a show. And you could tell at moments like that when he has a great opportunity to lay out a very obvious case that has nothing to do with his sexuality against Pete Buttigieg. I'm not going to go there. Yeah, he's a nice guy. Come on, man. Stephen Smith doesn't know Pete Buttigieg's record. He doesn't know why, aside from his personality style, which I'll admit is, lighter than chalk, and maybe that has something to do with it. But I don't think so, man. What? Joe Biden was soulful. Joe Biden looked like he just walked out of a Motown recording session. I mean, if you talk about who moves you, and it seems like that's what he was implying, that Pete Buttigieg just doesn't speak in a way that's going to appeal to that population. Joe Biden, the author of Mass Incarceration, didn't speak that way, and all it took was James Clyburn giving the thumbs down on voting for Bernie, and he cleaned up in South Carolina. Not so with Pete Buttigieg, although he didn't get the Clyburn endorsement.
John Kerry did very well with black voters in 2004.
Right.
What? John Kerry's a soul man?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
exactly. So here's the root. The root has uncovered documents, letters, and emails that outline years of discrimination against black cops and presidential candidate Pete Buttigieg's South Bend Police Department. Okay, so, a lot of people might have forgotten about this. I'll tell you, if Buttigieg runs for president, I will do my part to make sure nobody forgets about it. As I said, I've been on this for as long as we've had the show. Boykins had served that's Daryl Boykins, had served as a police officer in South Bend for 27 years before he was appointed as the city's first and to date only black police chief in 2007. In 2011, after the city's police telephone recording system crashed, SBPD Communications Director Karen DePape discovered recordings of white officers allegedly using racist rhetoric and concocting a way to get rid of Boykins with the help of top donors to Buttigieg's then ongoing mayoral campaign. DePape made 5 cassette tapes of the most egregious remarks and described them in legal documents the city has had for years. One officer allegedly said, quote, "It will be a fun time when all white people are in charge." Soon after Buttigieg took office, word got out about the tapes, and the officers complained that the recordings violated the Federal Wiretap Act. Even though the recording system had been in place for more than a decade, its existence somehow became the black guy's fault. Okay, so Buttigieg famously fired him. So there's a tweet about that. In 2013, Buttigieg replaced South Bend's first black police chief with a white chief with a history of civil rights complaints. Then the new chief was accused of failing to back up a black lieutenant, David Newton, responding to a report of an altercation involving a gun. Basically, he serpicoed him, tried to get him killed by not backing him up. That's who Buttigieg put in place. Got rid of the first black police chief. Didn't fire any of these cops that they had on tape making racist comments about the police chief. You want to say, well, these wiretaps are illegal, which obviously that was just an excuse. But even if you want to say that, don't you want to fire the racist cops too? Don't you want to get rid of that? Oh, wow, this is a hotbed of racism. Let's hire new cops. No, you didn't do that. Buttigieg's campaign criticized for using stock photo of Kenyan woman to promote plan to address U.S. racism. Remember that one? Is Ilhan Omar. This is not okay or necessary. But it gets better. Pete Buttigieg touted 3 major supporters of his Douglas plan for Black America. They were alarmed when they saw it. Quote, "I never actually endorsed the plan. They went ahead and used my name," said one prominent South Carolinian who the campaign named as a top supporter. Here's a copy of the tweet. They've since deleted this, but it's in the article. They were smart enough to screenshot it. More than 400 South Carolinians endorsed Mayor Buttigieg's Douglas plan for Black America. Now, for anyone who's forgotten or never knew, what this scumbag did to fake black support was send out an email to hundreds of South Carolina black business leaders and community leaders and politicians with an opt-out option, where if you didn't want to be included as endorsing the plan, you had to opt out. Which obviously, how many of your emails do you ignore? Particularly when it's unsolicited or right?
Yeah, no, he basically treated it like a free trial for a Kegel exercise app. If you forget to cancel, then you sign up,
Right, exactly. You're automatically assumed to approve his plan.
Right.
And then this one, I think we actually covered this. I think we had the show by then. Mayor Pete accused of using black women's support as props at Iowa caucuses. Remember this one? This one? Yeah.
Front row.
These 4 black women behind him. And this is Scotty Christopher Knight. This is a Democrat who likes him. I like Pete Buttigieg, but there's 4 black people in all of Iowa. And because of his problem getting black support since he announced his candidacy, he's got all 4 of them standing right behind him right now during his late night speech rally. And that was also the one, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Keaton, where without the results being in, he declared victory. Wasn't that the speech?
I think so. Yeah. I'm pretty sure.
And going to the absurd, Buttigieg's campaign bought lunch at a black-owned South Carolina restaurant, then called it a partnership. That partnership, as it turns out, was the exchange of money for food. $90 to be exact, to feed 8 campaign staffers and a surrogate. This was Diane's kitchen, and she had to come out and make a statement. They were pressuring her to say that she supported the campaign. And she said, "I'm only going to accept that you all stopped in while you were campaigning in South Carolina, and I welcomed you all." Okay. Any one of those things. Remember, this is the height of cancel culture. This is everybody's running around with white fragility under their arm at this time, and he was able to get away with that in that cultural moment. At this moment, the Democrats are scouring people's social media feed trying to find someone to cancel. A day without a cancellation for them was like a day without sunshine. This was the height of the cancel culture terror. And here's Pete Buttigieg explicitly and repeatedly lying about black support, speaking for black people, right? It was one of the things one of the core tenets of anti-racism. You don't speak for groups you don't belong to. Worse than that, he's claiming political support in the slimiest ways you can imagine. He didn't get canceled, man. He got transportation secretary. This is a big part of why, even if on the merits you agree with a lot of those principles, they never adhered to those principles. That was part of what was so repulsive about it. That was obvious to anybody who wasn't all the way down the rabbit hole in their bubble, that it was just a political tactic to rule people out of bounds who they find inconvenient to their power. That's all they ever used it for. You weren't even able to get to a discussion on the merits because they so clearly were never concerned about the merits. They were concerned about the merits. They would have drummed Pete Buttigieg out of the party just on firing the first black police chief of South Bend. He never even would have gotten the nod to go as far as he did.
Yeah, and for a McKinsey consultant who clearly just like poll tests everything he says in his brain before he says it, which explains the gobbledygook Israel answer on Pod Save America, you would think he could understand the data point zero black support means he's not viable. So just pack it up and go home. What is he even thinking? Like the Pete Buttigieg 2028 thing, it's a non-starter. It's not a serious conversation. That's why when I make jokes about the future woke president, right, I always say President Buttigieg because I'm joking, because that's the most ridiculous and ludicrous example. He's not going to be president. You cannot win a Democratic primary without black support. I don't think you could win one without 50% black support. Like you need at least half of the black vote to win. I can't think of a Democratic nominee who's won the nomination without that. Obviously, we know Biden won the black vote. Hillary won the black vote. Obama won the black vote. I just mentioned earlier in the segment, John Kerry won the black vote in the 2004 primary. I don't know what the numbers are on Al Gore. I'm assuming Clinton's outgoing VP. He probably won the black vote. But if he didn't, that would be the last one. That would be the last one.
Yeah, what happened to listen to black people?
Years. You cannot win without a majority of the black vote, much less zero. He's got zero. So that means there is no conversation, Pete Buttigieg as the nominee. And it's so weird that a guy who seems as data-driven as he is doesn't understand that, look, this ain't going to happen for him. Just go do something else. There's plenty of careers out there for bloodless McKinsey consultants. Being president is not in the cards for him. It's not going to happen.
He clearly thinks that one of these tricks, maybe he'll send all his staffers to every black-owned McDonald's in South Carolina and claim an endorsement from McDonald's. He clearly thinks he's going to pull some kind of slimy trick or be able to reinvent himself in a way that he's going to have a breakthrough. If you remember, I don't know if you had the pleasure, you probably did. After Clyburn told the voters of South Carolina Biden was the one they had to vote for, and they did it, MSNBC Democrats would really use that as a shield to call you a racist if you were still rejecting Joe Biden because you're not listening to black people. So why didn't that apply to Buttigieg?
Yeah.
There's a guy who has 0% support in that state where you're so admiring you're so respectful and deferential of the will of the voters in South Carolina. So why don't you entirely reject Pete Buttigieg the way they did?
Exactly. There's a big loud signal coming from there for sure that they are keen to ignore.
Please clap.